Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mixed Doubles Coaching Reprise Call webinar, and we're doing it in reprise mode because, as most of you know from the email that you received from Andrea, that there were some technical problems that occurred during that session that we did not get a full recording, and so Tyler and I have made another attempt here this evening to be able to go through the content that we originally had. So if you're a participant in the call from the first time, one of the 30 plus individuals that were able to attend that evening, or you did not attend the evening that we originally did the call because of conflicts, you're now getting a reprised version of the welcome. And to those who participated before, we hope that we were able to enrich your content a little bit further, because by now, a number of you have had your first coaching experience at mixed doubles, because Ontario Winter Games mixed doubles successfully ran last weekend. And I know the qualifiers also happened for the adult mixed doubles. And congratulations, Tyler, you and Nicole decided to make it easier for yourself. As opposed to your typical seaside challenge.
Yeah, we took the easy route for once, so.
Found an easy way to take the easy road out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Nicole appreciated that a great deal.
Yeah, both of us did, because I'm doing the bulk of the sweeping now, so.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So anyhow, we're here tonight again to talk about coaching and four-person team coaching as it relates specifically to mixed doubles. If you're coming for a lesson on mixed doubles, the game, and although we do have Tyler's expertise on the call, and clearly we'll probably touch a few of those things in some of the content that we're going to deliver tonight, this is mostly about coaching and about coaching the discipline of mixed doubles, and also talking about that in the context of the rules, and some that may not be as familiar to you, maybe a little more familiar after your experience this weekend. And for those of you specifically that you might have as it relates to coaching the discipline of mixed doubles. We won't take questions tonight, because obviously we don't have that opportunity to interact with you. But if you do have questions, do feel free to send them to me at perry@ontpearl.com, and we'll be happy to answer those questions directly and find a way to be able to post some of those questions after the fact. We also had a couple of chat questions, and I will intersect some of that content in the chat questions, from the chat questions we had during the session. So now the call recording is on, and hopefully you're having a chance to be able to review this. So same people are here tonight. Thank you to Tyler again for making the time this evening and after his successful weekend. And Tyler does have that experience of having participated in the mixed doubles Olympic trials. The team is currently ranked in the CDRMS system and at 8th until they kind of redo that ranking, Tyler. And you were our representative from Ontario at the 2017 Ontario Mixed Doubles as the Ontario Mixed Doubles champion at Nationals last year. And you also do have fourth-person experience with Team Dickey as their vice. And for myself, I do serve in the role of the Ontario Curling Council and manage the education programs for coaches, officials, and ice techs. Run a number of events under the Stu Sells banner, including mixed doubles event, targeted at U25s, chair of the Ontario Junior Curling Tour, an active coach, both at U18, U21, and now having successfully the ability to coach a team at Ontario Scotties this year, and have gotten into the discipline of mixed doubles and help with some of the next gen teams like Tyler and Nicole were this year. And try and give some of the expertise that I've developed over a few years now on the subject matter of mixed doubles. And it's really just from my early adoption of the discipline as coach. So Tyler, welcome. Thank you again for making time this evening to do this call.
Thank you again for having me.
So, mixed doubles curling. It is just curling, isn't it? Well, for most of us, we believe yes, it is. It still requires you to get the rock closer to the center than your opponent, and the more you get closer to the center, the more points you're going to be able to score. And it's still about throwing good shots. You need to throw rocks and put them in the right place. You need to throw them at the right weight, especially in this discipline, at the right weight. And you're going to be required to have just about every shot that you need in your arsenal. However, probably more on the softer weight side, because the ultimate position of these rocks seems to lead to the big end scores or the giving up of the big end score going forward. But not to say that the bigger weights aren't important, as you do find yourself in trouble, and recognizing that sooner, you can use run backs and other hits at weight to be able to help reduce the damage or create more scoring for yourself. The things that seem to define the difference in this discipline is really the elements that we're going to identify on the right. The positioned rocks in play create both a prescribed fashion to the play, most of it towards the center, with the exception of a couple ends in an 8-end game that might use the power play, and therefore you're going to the wings to be able to shoot. And unlike your regular 4-person play, which does have the act of setting up center guards and corner guards and putting rocks at the top of the forefoot, you can find sometimes those shots are made in and they don't rock put in play exactly where you want it to, and an end doesn't go exactly the way you expect it to because your first shots don't end up in the right spots. In this discipline, they are there. They're already set. So, it's all on right from the beginning, trying to either defend or being able to try and take advantage of the fact that the rocks are already in play. And making those shots on a consistent basis is probably the biggest challenge for 2 people, no different than it is for 4 people, but in this particular case, with 2 people with limited sweeping and, not necessarily a strong sense of where the line might be or exactly where it might be, and consistently throwing those rocks. That can be the greatest challenge against these pre-positioned stones. The other element that is the 4 guard rule, that it really applies to all the rocks in play, not just in the free guard zone, but the rocks that are clearly in play, and they cannot be removed until the 4th thrown stone. And those elements that the prescribed and pre-positioned rocks, the 4-rock rule, do tend to lead to the younger or the developing team, the team that hasn't played this game as much, to be confused and or sit in a state of indecision about what to do and how to play their next shot. And they're trying to analyze the opportunities to either promote their position or get away from that position. Their bail point is an example, without the ability to be able to deal with so many rocks in play at a particular time, and then being able to think that maybe they have more opportunity to be able to address it with the rocks that they have, but they quickly realize there's not a lot of rocks in play. So Tyler, you've been playing this game for a while. I think we recognize that maybe back in 2014, you and Nicole sort of played your first mixed doubles. What's your perspective of mixed doubles curling versus 4-person team curling, and how it differs, and how you've come to deal with that?
Yeah, doubles just seems to go so much faster. So you can easily get lost out there in the game, and all of a sudden look up, and all you have is 1 rock left to go, and you have to move 4 rocks out of your way. So since we did go to the Nationals, 2014 or 2015 now, the one in Ottawa. We just really, just sort of thought it was a bit gimmicky, and then, as we started to play a little bit more, had a little bit more success, it really became a lot of fun. So the difference, I guess, between 4-person and 2-person is you essentially have to do the same amount. You're just doing it with half the people. So you're reading the ice. You're sweeping probably just as much, if not more. You're hustling to get up and catch up to the rock if you're chasing after it. So it's really a lot of fun. We quite enjoy it. So.
My other sense, Tyler, having played the game as well too, and certainly not at the level you and Nicole have come to, is that you always get this sense that you're only one good shot away, one good draw shot away from changing an outcome. But that's the blessing and the curse, because you're almost putting yourself in that position that you think you can do that, and then that shot's really not there. And it actually causes more of a problem than what you think is the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be in full control of the game. You can be up 4, and then all of a sudden you're throwing your last stone, and you're hoping that you only give up 3. So it can be really wild. If you're an inch off where you want to be, you're either an inch perfect or you're an inch to doom, I guess.
So if we think about what this game is really like, we also need to think a little bit about what are the combinations that seem to take the great success. When I first got involved in this back in 2014 and consulted with Jennifer Paris at the time, the Ontario Curling Council, saying, what did we know? How are we going to approach this as a discipline? Starting to get interested both as a coach and as a program developer. I was starting to look at the best combinations of people to be able to do that. And we started gathering data on what skill sets and what traditional player positions would make that optimal combination for a team. It's very interesting that even our most recent data that we have from which I'll go over shortly from the mixed doubles trials, really doesn't help us answer that question. But the key seems to be chemistry is something that sometimes can be easier to create between 2 people than it is easier to create sometimes in a 4-person team environment. You could get consistency of shooters. You could get complementary types of shooters, complementary knowledge of the game. Maybe one who might have a more back-end knowledge of angles and ice conditions, who complements very well somebody who just consistently throws really good draw weight, or really has a good sense of what the speed of the ice is and their ability to be able to throw it. There's also an interesting dynamic that we saw very early on in a lot of the people that we looked at to try and understand what made mixed doubles curling different. And that was an element in the dynamic of relationship. Many of the people had a outside of curling as much as on the ice when they were curling. And that dynamic of that relationship, again, creates some differences than what you might even see in a 4-person team when you've got 4 individuals to get together, or you may have, a sibling combination that might be on a team versus not on another 4-person team. But the common traits that we tended to see that we started to study and see in the best teams and the ones that, you as people who might be running a program and trying and put your best combinations together, might try and look for people who have the ability to quickly assess the shots that need to be made at all points in the games and the situations presented. If you take a long time to make decisions, or if you have a lot of indecision about a shot, those don't lend well to the pace of this game, and obviously with the time clocks that are added to this game as well at 22 minutes in many of the events that you go to. There's 24 minutes being used at Ontario Winter Games, just to give a couple of extra minutes for these teams who are still developing to be able to do that. But that ability to assess and look at the situation and make a confident and quick decision about what they're going to shoot. And of course, critical and consistent shot makers, ones who are also critical of themselves in their analysis, because you're the only one out there who pretty much knows what you throw. And as you can see to the picture on the right, a lot of this distance happens with you sort of watching what you did against what you thought you did, and having to make that correction the next time that you go on, whether it was ice, whether it was you, whether it was your release, whether it was your misjudgment of the weight. This ability to be able to quickly and critically self-assess is important. And I've also picked up in talking to a number of people at the elite level that unlike four-person curling, where there can be a lot of interaction, a lot of dialogue, a lot of confidence building that comes from the last rock thrower to the front end as they go down and make those hard last shots. There's an element of loneliness out there, an element of you are by yourself, although you may have a partner. You do spend as much time away from that partner as you do with that partner and talking about it. And when you're talking with that partner, you're trying to quickly assess those situations about what's the next best shot. So that in turn creates a challenge in being able to play this game. And of course, last but not least, and Tyler, I know you're going to validate this just not only from this past weekend, but certainly from the national trials. This is a very fast-paced game that involves a lot more sweeping than you think. Your physical conditioning will be tested. And you really do have to be able to keep up with that pace of play. And it can be really draining, especially as you were doing it at mixed doubles trials, playing 3 draws in a day. And that's a bit of a challenge. So maybe, Tyler, you've seen some of the best in the world now playing this game, best in Canada for sure. Perhaps you can talk about what do you think it makes successful for your combination with Nicole, the people that you've seen who have been out there and were successful and now are going off to the Olympics. Give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it becomes very evident that you have to get the most out of every rock that you throw. So whether that means you pick up on weight, or you pick up on line, or you really have to be very critical of how you've thrown that rock, of how, if you've added just a little bit, if you've swept it just a little bit too early. You have to be really, really self-critical. So what I've seen from the top level, they've done different things. I don't think there's a tried true way, unfortunately. I wish there was, but certainly you have to be very efficient in everything that you do. So, and the physicality of it, really, really important to try to recover as fast as possible. And that's easier said than done after you've swept 3 in a row end to end. But it's really important if you get that drink of water and rehydrate yourself, and just make sure that you're the best you can be given the circumstances. So.
And I just want to draw us back to this point of the combinations of 2 people. And I know it's easy for you and Nicole, because you both love the sport and you spend a lot of time together. But it's also a means that you can also practice together, not only the disciplines that help you as 4-person team members, but also in support of your understanding of the 2-person game. Part of the reason why this is in the Olympics going forward is that this has become a really good vehicle to grow the game around the world. And down in the left corner, picture of two-time world champions from Hungary of all places, that has one curling rink and two shoots. When I first met this team, and I'll talk a little bit about the female component of that team in a minute, but it is what I was struck by when I met both of these players was the chemistry that they had together, the ability to be able to work together. When I've watched them on the World Curling Federation site, watched games played, they clearly had a sense of, it's almost like two people playing as one in their ability to be able to assess the situation, make shots, and put themselves into good positions and to defend the positions that would prevent large scores happening. So this intangible of chemistry is really important. I'm going to try and run, for those of you who were on the call originally, we're going to try and run at least one of these videos, see if it runs a little bit better with the technology tonight. These are CBC outtakes from after draws in the mixed doubles trials. And we're going to run it a little bit. You can hear all of the elements that we talked about in these elite players, people that you're going to know immediately when you see them, start talking about the game they just played and the skills that they're trying to build on, and what they're trying to achieve as two players of the game together. So let's watch this, and again, these links are going to be on this presentation that you're going to be able to go watch yourself, and we encourage you to be able to do that. So let's see if this works a little bit better in this format tonight. Whoops, back one. And let's see if we can get this to run. Wow. Looks like we may just have some sound problems here. Let me just go back and try this one more time. I may know what the challenge is. Let me just test something here really quickly. Thank you, Charlie, for letting me know that. Yeah, that's the problem. I need to reset the speakers. Let's try one more time. Now that we have this set up.
We don't have to listen to this one. This is after they beat us, Perry. So.
I didn't know that. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. I didn't do that to Gillian. Oh, they're so well spoken now.
Right off the bat, like this, an event like this.
Yeah, I think that always getting off on a great start is important. Gives you confidence going into the next game. We have a big day today, so it's nice to.
We hear that, Tyler?
Strong.
Yeah, you're good.
Really, can you talk about the tone and the pace that was set in this game and how you guys maintained that? Yeah, I think that we had a really, really strong start. We made a lot of shots early, and we got a few misses out of them. So we just kind of had to maintain that throughout the game, and it worked out for us in the end. You two are pioneers at this sport, playing it before it was even an Olympic sport. How does it feel to be here right now and seeing what this discipline has really turned into?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to us, and to see it develop into an Olympic sport is really cool, and we just want to, play our best and hope for the best.
How does it feel to see the competition now that's in it now? Would you say it's amped up since the Olympics? Oh, big time. I mean, you take a look at both of the pools. There's no Stances on every game, party, subpar game. Any team can beat you out there. So really tough competition. Congratulations, you guys. Can you talk about the importance of getting off to a great start like this? Obviously, really important to get the first win under your belt. It's such a good field. You never know when you're going to get your W's. So we're confident that we're happy with that win, and we know we didn't play our best, so to be able to sweep that one out, we can look forward to the next one. So where do you guys seek improvements in the future there? What do you need to work on going forward?
Just precision of shots. There's a couple of my first rocks that the weight was a little off on. They were a little bit heavy and just left some opportunities, and then some hit and sticks that we had that we just weren't quite figuring out the line. We would find a way to make half shots, which I think kept us in it, but we're going to have to be more precise than that if we're playing teams are playing really well.
Steals of 2 and 4 and 5 really helped out the team. Can you walk us through those ends? Yeah, definitely in the fourth. Sure, you were talking on the last one. So that was a good end. We got fortunate, obviously, in the third end. We were looking at maybe giving up probably a triple that end. But we were lucky I made a hit and roll and got a little lucky on John's next one, and we were able to get a steal out of it when it looked like we were probably giving up some points. To have the opportunity to be able to go to the Olympics together and just see how this event in mixed doubles has really come to its own in the curling scene.
Yes, when we found out that mixed doubles was going to be a sport in the Olympics, I think us and the rest of the curling world are pretty excited that we had a second chance to go there, and obviously here together would be something pretty special, but that's still a long ways away. So if we don't, we still get a wedding in May. We have lots of time to look forward to, so I think that'll give us a bit of an advantage that we're going to be happy no matter what happens here. So.
Let's start with that. You two are obviously really good friends on and off the ice. Can you talk about that relationship and how important it is in this type of sport?
I think the biggest thing with doubles is you just don't get that many opportunities to play. So if you don't have somebody that you already know pretty well that you can communicate with, it makes it that much harder because we haven't played an event together since August and nobody really has. So you got to try to pick somebody where you have that kind of rapport and the communication's a little easier.
Can you talk a little bit about your rapport off the ice, Colin?
Well, Charlie's my best friend, so we pretty much talk all the time. So we watch all each other's games. So there's pretty good scouting report on Chelsea. I get to watch lots of the trials in the playoffs. So it's nice having a hot skip coming into this. And yeah, it's good being able to know each other so well because we definitely needed out there during that game. Haven't played together for a while, so just getting back in the swing of things, use each other's releases, and grinded a little bit, but that's just how it goes. And luckily, we're able to be a really good team.
Notching off that first win in any round robin or any event is super important. Can you talk about that, Stick?
Yeah, you want to get that stick off the board as quick as you can, and I'm sure you got an interview clip of me saying exactly that in a number of other hospitals. But it is really important. It just hangs over your head until it goes away. So you want the first stage to at least come away with one win, so you get that off of there, so that feels good. And to Colin's point, I mean, one of the best teams in the event, so that's a bonus.
That third or 3 in the third really helped out. Can you walk us through that end there?
Well, you just got to make the first shot, and then once you make that shot, you got to follow it up with getting the right angles, and then once you do that, you leave yourself a good chance at a multiple score. It happens a lot of times during a game, and you have to capitalize every time, or else the game it could slip away from you pretty quickly.
Well, again, just to emphasize a lot of things that we talked about earlier, I'm not going to play the second video. I think at the end of the day, that gives us a good sense of the key things that we were talking about as it relates to the relationship, the ability to throw good shots, to be able to find the right angles, taking advantage of those opportunities. So we do encourage you to watch those links. And of course, encourage you as well to spend time watching some very good video that now exists, not only on the CBC website, but also on the World Curling Federation website, from the Worlds, from the mixed trials. It really does give you a good sense for the game now if you haven't spent as much time looking at it. So let me digress a little bit. I'm going to talk about my own journey in this, and I'm going to start with a picture. Pictured with me to my right, to your left in the picture, actually is a world champion 2 times, and she was that at all of 19 years of age. I met her first in 2015 when I was starting to get a little more interested in what mixed doubles was and how we were going to coach mixed doubles, what were the related skills, that we're looking for. And I went to Kelowna, BC. That's the Kelowna Curling Club. If anybody notices it, it just doesn't happen to have the white ice paint on at this particular time of the year. They just put the sheets back in for a camp that's a lot like Trillium, and also a large bonspiel. And in this particular case, the first ever mixed doubles camp that was run by national team coach Elaine Dag-Jackson. And she invited Dori Polenska, that's Dorita Polenska on the left from Hungary, and she was one of the subject matter experts that were there. Just so happens I was the only person that was there who didn't have a teammate. And I had the opportunity to play with Dori and be her Zoltan for a few days while we were at this camp, which included the first time I met Charlie Thomas and Kaylin Park, now Virtue, and Rachel Holman was there as well too. That the subject matter expertise that was helping at this camp. And it was interesting when I met her and I started to talk with her and I actually started to play with her, because what I clearly came to understand was that this person was a world champion for a reason. And despite the fact that she was only 19, she really understood the game. She really understood the shot making of the game. She, as the first and fifth rock thrower on her team, was extremely consistent in how she threw those rocks. Her technical ability was a little bit suspect for me, who've been working with a whole bunch of athletes over the years, and technically breaking down her slide, her release, her throw. Certainly, I could see some issues that were there, but they worked for her, and she was very good. So, an extremely high level of fitness, and this was at a time before the rules changed about sweeping, and there was always the holder of the broom, or at least the other person was down the other end of the ice. She was very good at getting up, very good at being able to start the sweeping activity. And to a question that came from Scott Arnold on the chat before, that yes, Scott, it's true. I think a lot of her technical issues were the way she was taught to be able to get up and sweep quickly. And then she had a very high release point to be able to do that. But she clearly was a very, very, very good first point to be able to gather data about the skill sets that help support my understanding of mixed doubles. And she could make a lot of shots. And so back to this point of, do we really know what the right combinations are? Originally we thought that two back-end players might not necessarily make a good combination. They might not have had the physical prowess. They might not have had the sweeping ability. They may debate incessantly over shot calls to be able to do it. Contrast that with people who are at the front end who maybe had a little more physical ability with regards to sweeping, had a little more better endurance for the speed and physicality of the game. But our most recent results, and this is what you see from the 16 teams who participated at trials, that the jury is still out. We clearly have, demonstrated that two front-end players can play very well together. 8-0s for Peterman Gallant and Crocker and Walker, all typically front-end players. But at the end of the day, we saw just about as many front-end players and back-end players make the final teams that participated in the playoff structure, and they're in yellow and green appropriately. And what did we get at the end? We got a final that had two stiffs and two vices, arguably, and that still doesn't help us be able to figure out at the end of the day what's the best combination. What I'm certainly sure about is that those teams that get a chance to play more often together, who practice the discipline, as Colin and his partner were talking about, Chelsea Carey were talking about, you don't get a chance to play it often enough, and that has a lot speak about those people that might succeed at the sport. And the issue of consciously coupled people, well, I mean, again, we got the two extremes. Crocker and Walker get married this year. Peter and Gallant are a conscious couple as well too. And of course, you have Tyler and Nicole and Kim and Wayne representing long-term relationships as well too. And we don't know whether that makes a better combination or not. What we do know is it can make for some very interesting things on the ice. And I am taken by a lot of the conversation that did happen in one game that was on the video live streaming from CBC, and it was Kim and Wayne, who I know well enough now to have a laugh at this picture from Frank McCourt that was published in Curling Zone, where are we really still married, despite the struggles that they were having on the ice. And maybe, Tyler, I'll leave the last comment to you as being one of the ones on the consciously coupled side. And what is it like to be able to curl with your spouse on a regular basis in such high-level competition?
It's a lot of fun and frustrating at the same time, and I'll leave it at that.
And I know one of the capabilities that we were, this is an interesting part of this, that when Tyler and Nicole and their coach Rick, Tyler's dad, and I were working at the Next Gen camp this year, Nicole has a really good skill in being a sports psychologist and being able to help teams get the best out of their mental performance. And even her trying to make sure that she can kind of get the right support, knowing that the two of you have a relationship off the ice as much as on the ice, and how that could be supported. So it's an interesting paradigm to be out there, and not at Kim and Wayne's expense, of course. These are pictures of our last 4 national champions. And I've had a chance to talk to all of them. I know some of them better than others. And what I think is really interesting from having observed and watched these people is they all took different paths to their championships. When I first met Wayne and Kim, and we were champions in 2014, I think what seemed to strike me about them was their knowledge and understanding of the game. It looks like they really worked at it. And they spent a lot of time doing that. And I think that was an advantage that they were able to use way back in 2014. You were there, Tyler. And I just think that was something that struck me, that they had this insight into how to play this game, perhaps way back in 2014. In 2015, Charlie Thomas, an accomplished junior player, an accomplished skip in the province of Alberta himself now, and Kalen Park had come together, sort of caught the world by storm in 2014 as well too, but didn't make it through the playoff structure, got more dedicated to the game, spent more time introducing an element into their game that seemed to help them in 2015, and that was Charlie's use of the run back. He got very, very good at being able to make that shot almost at will and really changing the dynamic of the game in any one particular end, that might have been looking really good for their opponent, and then all of a sudden it would change and they would be up scoring 3 or scoring multiple points. And that was back in 2015. And I'll take you back to that chart. In this elite group, I think their final record was 3-5. And back in 2015, I didn't think anybody thought they could be beat, right, Tyler?
Yeah.
Then we saw the introduction of the elite players into the game, and a conscious effort of Curling Canada and likes of Jeff Stoughton to be able to convince those people to play the game. And as you heard clearly from Laura's comments, that it was another opportunity for these elite people, a second chance to potentially find their way into the Olympics, because at the end of the day, only 4 people get to go from one team, and now you have 2 others who 4 people from the men, 4 people from the women, and now another woman and another man get to be able to go to the Olympic Games. and that saw Gallant and Peterman come to the forefront. They couldn't go to the World Championships because of conflicts in their four-person teams. And then that was followed up by Joanne and Reed. Reed, very much an up-and-coming skip. Joanne, probably arguably one of the best seconds in the world as a female player, maybe as any second in the world. And they led the way and ultimately created the path for what we will now see for the likes of Tyler and Nicole, Kim and Wayne, and everybody else who has that opportunity to go to the Olympic Games, because they got us that qualifying spot at the end of the day. Tyler, you've met all these people, you know all these people. Is there some attributes that you've seen that you'd like to highlight from any of these four last champions?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Tucks right out of the gate really adopted the game, and it's the soft shots that they play that really make them really good at the game. Park and Thomas, you mentioned, both of them very good at the run back game, bigger weights, but also on the soft shots as well. Peterman and Gallant and Courtney and Carruthers, just well-rounded curlers. I think Jocelyn and Brett, both being skips in the past, I think sort of helps the team in throwing that last shot. So Jocelyn, for sure, I know at trials made some really good shots to save their bacon a few times. So and then what can you say about Joanne and Reed? A couple of the nice people on the ice, and really really good teammates. They work really well together and have all the shots. So.
But I think at the end of the day, it's still about their ability to be able to raise to the level of their opponent and beyond. And if you look at the statistics that now have been captured, because we run it under the Curling Canada model, so you get scorekeeping, you get timekeeping, et cetera, to be able to support that. It's very interesting that Peterman and Gallant finished with a percentage of 84% and were +6. That was number one overall. Carruthers and Officer were 79%, +3, and fourth overall. Park and Thomas at 76%, 0 on the plus-minus. They finished in the middle of the pack at 8th. And Kim and Wayne were 68% and -2 and finished 15th overall. Was there contributing factors to that? I think probably you can get and the rocks, and those may well have contributed to, because these were rocks and an ice condition that many of these elite players were used to. But clearly that is, if this is where it's going to go, then putting yourself into this type of competition and this type of environment is no different than you see, as well as teams now that are curling on the TV this week, as they adapt to those types of conditions. And Tyler, maybe perhaps you could have a comment or two on what you thought were some of the difference makers as it related to the conditions that you were in at trials.
Yeah, I think it's just such an advantage to be able to know exactly what the rock is going to do on that ice. I think we struggled with early on the soft weight shots, so that board weight. If you just add a little bit, then it runs a hair straighter than you think, and you end up looking like a fool. So that was certainly, from our standpoint, our struggle was just figuring out the ice and the rocks. So yeah, it's certainly an advantage to have that experience. And I know from our standpoint, that's a major learning in ways that we anticipated how it was going to be, but I guess you don't really know how it's going to be until you're there. So I think we're moving forward. I think we're looking for more ways that we can be ready for those conditions, for sure.
So that's a good segue into, you are a coach. You are now in these situations where you're trying to work with your combination to be able to succeed in this environment. What can you do? And this is something where we'd like to be able to highlight what you can do pre-competition and competition. So number one on that list to me is being able to develop a set of pre-programmed routines. And those routines representing, excuse me, I think I have to check a little text. All right, let's try this. You still have me?
Yep, gotcha.
You still have me, Tyler?
Yep.
I'm getting an echo. Excuse me 1 minute, folks. We're going to just work on this technically for a bit and see if there's a challenge that is contributing to this. All right, let's try again. I don't hear it now, which is better. So we believe, I believe, that there's a few things that you can do in helping that is in pre-competition to be able to make your teams more successful. The first would be under the heading of developing regular routines for shot calling. So there shouldn't be a lot of debate about when you hold a broom on a hit or a draw. If you use a target line, whether you're not going to be using a target line, the more you debate about that, the more time it's going to take, the more uncertainty it's going to bring into your game. If you can plan for the norm of what you're normally going to do, and then quickly deal with the exceptions to that, you will be in a much better position to be able to successfully be able to routinely go ahead and make those shots and stay within the time window that's there. Second, practice. And you're practicing literally the hardest shots in curling. Freezes, tap backs, hits and rolls, that run of the center guard. Those are the hardest shots in curling. And those are the ones that you need to practice with regularly to be able to be successful. At the same time, if you're not experienced about learning about angles, the way rocks will drag, especially when they're locked together, those are the things that you need to spend a little time being able to work with your teams on. Not everybody's a skip, not everybody sees the line as well as others. But clearly your ability to be able to judge your weight and to be able to throw it time and time again consistently will help you a lot. But there's some things that you can over practice. And the run back is kind of one of them, although we talked about Charlie and Kalen being successful in 2015 and adding that to their arsenal and literally as game changer. It's not commonly used. It's not a shot that you can master easily in this format. It's even hard to master, quite frankly, in a 4-person team. But it is something that you can work on and use at critical times. Developing those self-analysis, self-critique skills. You're the one who needs to give yourself the feedback. You're the one who has to analyze quickly what it is you did. You might be able to get some validation from your partner, but your partner's probably 100 feet away calling line or is trying to work vigorously to be able to tweak. And this can be a huge challenge. So that self-analysis and self-critique skills. developing shot sequences that are based on variances based upon the outcomes of the shot. So, a freeze at 4 and 4 locked on a particular way will create, the next series of 1 or 2 shots that are going to happen. But when you've got a variance of that, it might be 3 out of 4, or 2 out of 4, or 1 out of 4, or 0. Developing a sequence of shots that at the end of the day help you to need to score the 2 at particular times in the game, or need to force, let's say needs to score multiple points, or you need to force to 2 or less than 1. These are things that you should practice, and they should be the types of things that you see when you go over your analysis of the game afterwards. Whether you use a product like Curl Coach to be able to show you sequences of shots, or you use another tool, or just do a critical shot analysis. These are the types of things that you can develop the program sequences about. The power play. We're going to talk about this in depth through a little exercise that Tyler's going to run shortly. But that power play and being able to know the sequence of shots that you're trying to do for offensive purposes, to score multiple points, or to defend that power play is the way in which you can hold your opponent down and away from the multiple point score that they're desperately looking for. That's typically, why you're using the power play. But the point we really want to make on the power play is it sort of comes up at you sometimes. Sometimes you can expect it, just given what the scoreboard is, it happened in the end. But if you're not ready for it, if you're not prepared for it, your opponent right away. And that first inclination to come around the corner guard and freeze down the top is harder than you think, because so many other shots are coming into the middle, and now all of a sudden you're going to the wings. Gathering data is so important, and discussing it amongst yourself, and also gathering data from your opponent is another way in which you can be able to, ascertain what's going on in the game. And it's a skill, it's a learned skill. And then that plays into, how you make quick and decisive decisions. You see something, you see a result, you have a good sense of what it is that you're going to do when your shot comes up. If you're still thinking about it, if you're indecisive about it, first of all, you're going to take a lot of time to make a decision, and it's going to put more pressure on you when it actually comes to making that shot if you're not decisive in what your shot making is. Tyler, you want to comment on any of these skills that you work on? Nicole?
Yeah, I think all of them were consistently trying to build upon certain things. So from a routine standpoint, I think we have a good idea of when we want somebody to sweep the rock, or when we're okay with just jumping up and sweeping our own. So typically on peels and stuff like that, I'll just get up and sweep rather than Nicole stand aside for that one. It's more on the software shots that we figure that you really can benefit from having the sweeper right away. We do an awful lot of practicing and working on different scenarios. So it could be scenarios that we've seen, scenarios that we may not be all that familiar with that we want to work on, and that sort of helps in the decision-making piece, and building that data for ourselves to ensure that when we're on the clocks, that you have that sort of shot sequence in your mind. I think we've both gotten much better at being able to analyze and share that feedback with one another. So whether or not that's right away when you have the person beside you and sweeping. So if you've added a little bit on the throw, immediately letting that person know, let the sweeper know that you've done so, or if you've missed the shot, let's say, maybe being able to self-analyze and say, well, maybe, I poked that back just a little bit, or having that instant feedback is really important. And it's also really important to really pay attention to what the other team is doing, because that's another opportunity where, in four-person curling, it's still very important that you're watching and tracking the ice, but it may not be your role on the team, where in doubles everything becomes your role. So it's pretty important to just ensure that you have those roles moving into the game.
So let's focus on in competition for a minute. Now, again, we've advanced a week since we did this presentation, and obviously some of you have now had a chance to be able to have that, first taste perhaps of a weekend of coaching. So you'll have your own commentary as it relates to this. But to emphasize from my to speak on behalf of his coach, Nicole's coach, for me, the focus first is on the emphasis of what you've built in practice. Those scenarios. This game is all out offense from shot one. There is no feeling it out, no trying to figure out the ice, no trying to figure out what it's going to do as you go along. You might be able to build that over an event, but at the end of the day, this is all offense all the time. So building solid scenarios for them that look like the first couple of ends and the types of things that they are trying to accomplish in those first couple of ends, when shots go right, when shots don't go as right as they hope. These are really important things that they're going to be able to have in their back pocket, ready to execute when the pressure's on and when the spotlight's on, what they have to do. You're only going to get a 6 or 7 minute practice depending upon the event that you're at. You'll gather a little data for sure, but you are most of all focused on trying to win that hand. Because in an 8-end game, an important thing. And you're going to continue to gather data throughout the game, especially from your opponent, as Tyler said, as emphasized as well. But these are important skills to be able to continue to focus on. For players who may not necessarily have that back-end experience, see what's happening in the ice, how it's changing. Curl Coach is a product that works, and Stephen and I have had subsequent conversations to this after his successful weekend, coaching the team that he was coaching. And there are some things that, though you may experience as trouble some, if you're trying to use that tool because of the pace of this game, you may not be able to do the record keeping, which is a component of Pro Coach, quickly as the game is going, so that you can produce when they need you in a timeout situation, in a fourth down, right? And things that you're going to have. If you can find somebody else to be able to assist you with that record keeping exercise of Girl Coach, you're essentially then using that for validating some of the work that you've done in pre-competition on the scenarios that you're seeing, or building new scenarios that you're going to see going forward. Don't expect the same shooting percentages as if you were in a 4-person team. First of all, you're dealing with the most difficult shots. A lot of the shots have that similar inbound feel into the center field to them. That in itself is going to lead to percentages that you're used to. And you also don't have some of those hits and sticks that you would normally see that would be helping percentages going forward. Go over your power play strategies before the game starts so that you're, again, just reminding people, your team, what it is that you're going to do when that power play comes up, so you're not confused in the moment. We're going to go over that in a second, some more to direct a discussion of the power play. But those are things that you as a coach in competition can remind your team when they get the first opportunity for a power play. And remind the players to keep hydrated. Hydration is really, really important. It deals with your ability to stay focused. It deals with the strain of your pace of play. And you really do have to use that to be able to keep yourself inside the game and to be able to play multiple games in a day. And don't forget, this is one place in time where if things aren't going exactly the way that you hope for, you can change the order of throwing, and you can also give away the hammer if you want, and that's just unique to this rule set. But it is something that you can use. And Tyler, I'm not sure how often you've used it, because I see more often teams trying to stay set in their order. But when things just aren't going the right way, it's a tool that you can use.
Yeah, it's a way that you can sort of change the mojo, if you will. So, but we used that as a tool last year for a way for both of us to get our weight. So we would switch back and forth at least once a game to make sure that we both could throw those 3 in a row to make sure that we got draw weight down quickly. So, but yeah, it's certainly it's not something that's used as often as you think it might. So, for instance, I think at trials, maybe the tucks were the only ones we didn't even change at trials. So, and as far as giving away the hammer, I don't know if I've ever seen that, and we've sort of discussed maybe opportunities of when you would do that, but I just don't know when. If you were up big, you may, I guess, to get that rock in there. So yeah, it's a unique aspect of the game. It's something that's always there. So it just provides for. It's always something to certainly have in the back of your mind. That's for sure. So.
And for those of you who are very statistically driven or look at the percentage of players and what they throw, I just wanted to emphasize just through this one slide, some of these players who made the final group of players who made it to the final round of 8, in the semifinals, into the 3-4 game, and then into the finals games. On your left is you're going to see their trials or pre-trials results. So there's the most recent results that they've had as individuals within that competition. And then you see their results at mixed trials, and it does reflect in those statistics some of their positional changes within a game and what rocks that they threw. But you can see, in general, all those percentages tend to go down, just given the types of shots that they're throwing and how accurately they have to throw them. And in turn, you can also see their plus-minus percentages. So at the end of the day, to me, that's probably your best measure of how well someone is curling, whether you're curling better than the opposite person you're throwing to. And I've suggested to Stephen Orr, the Curling Canada Stats looks at shot 1 and shot 5 as unique shots, and then it aggregates 2, 3, and 4. My belief is that you actually should look individually at shots 1, shots 2, shots 3, shots 4, and shots 5, and then aggregate for the player themselves after the fact. And you can pick up little things in shot 2 or shot 3 about hits versus draws, or taps versus freezes, and hits and rolls, and see how those percentages change over time, and probably learn as much from that as the aggregation of those numbers. And maybe you'll see some things that are different going forward. But good players still deliver great results, and so you can see that in the plus-minus that are there. So let's just move on to that forward play. We want to talk a little bit about that. So of course, it's particular points in the game where you're trying to kind of redefine the outcome of the game in your favor. or to defend against your opponent scoring play correctly. Freezing around the corner guard is more difficult than you think. We've said this a couple of times because all that play has been in the middle. And defensive strategies against that usually have been putting rock on the forefoot, followed by a guard, or vice versa, raising the guard to a freeze position, or to the forefoot, or to a guard position, or just tick it as far out of the way as possible. And offensive strategies do include going around the corner guard, frozen, draw to the other side, freeze to the rock in the forefoot, or double guard to steal. And I'm going to let Tyler take us through and show us some of those examples. And if this works better than it did when we did this originally, I'm going to pass this to you, Tyler, and you can give some things from your team's experience and what you do offensively and defensively against our play.
All right. What we got here? Okay. So we'll move the rocks into place. So let's just say the other team has called the power play. We are in a defensive mode, so more likely than not, depending on the ice conditions, we're going to try to play a little bit of a split. And so ideally, the best thing is if you can get that top four, or at least for first shot, somewhere along the area here. But if you just click it to the center, that's not so bad either, as long as you've rolled your shooter away. The other option that you have in more of a defensive strategy would be to actually go into the house. So you go in top four. You can even go in back four. We've seen that done before. It's an attempt, right, to really draw the play into the house at that point. So from a offensive standpoint, if we're trying to if we need to steal, we may put center guard up. You again can come in the house, but you may see the other team come down and actually tap your rock back. And again, you're bringing play into the house that may not bode well for you if you're trying to steal. We've tried it a couple times as well to throw two guards. So sometimes you'll see. So we'll throw the first one, let's say a tight three. You may see the other team come around, but then we'll put another guard up, just again to draw more rocks in play, in hopes that at some point you're going to have to deal with this rock in the house, but you're going to have to you got to hope for a miss at this point if you're really trying to score, right? So other ways that we've seen it done, we haven't necessarily tried it ourselves, is the other team just goes in to the other side. So just really will just sort of opens the play up, and you sort of have to decide what you're going to do at that point. So there are a couple of different options that we've seen.
All right. Thank you for that, Tyler. And again, you can spend a lot of time at power play, sometimes too much at power play, but you need to spend enough to be able to know what it is that you are good at doing. That's also based on what you're experiencing from that game, like Tyler said. What do the ice conditions dictate? I've actually seen it where people will tap back straight back this red rock and put it, try and use it there, do it that way to be able to do it, and still leave another one here. And in some ice conditions, they'll throw a backline weight and almost even go around the outside, right, Tyler? And
Yep.
come back and tap this one back here, because there's enough curl on the ice to be able to do that and still keep that rock in play, because you do have that little extra space to deal with back here that you don't have when you're here. So again, the ice conditions can dictate a lot what opportunities that you have in the power play, and it can be just as demoralizing to hold your opponent to a 1 when they have the power play, or a steal of 1, which happens, maybe not as frequently as others, but it certainly does happen. But when you don't get that multiple point score, it can be absolutely demoralizing to your opponent, as much as anything else that you will do.
Yeah,
so go ahead, Tyler. Sorry.
We sort of figured that if you can hold the opponent to 2, then you're doing okay on the power play. That's really what it's sort of aimed to do, right? Is that you got that rock in there, and they have another shot, I guess, at drawing pins. So if you're if all shots are made, you probably give up.
Well, that concludes all of our information for this evening. Obviously, we don't have you on the line to have a conversation today with questions. Do feel free, if you have any, to email myself, Perry at ontcurl.com. Again, that's Perry at ontcurl.com. And if I need to involve Tyler, I'll certainly pass the question on to him as well too. And we will look forward to having those conversations with you, and hopefully we develop a whole group of new coaching disciplines and capabilities for you going forward. Thanks for your time, and Tyler, thanks for your time again tonight. And I'm going to stop the recording now, and hopefully we hear from you again in the future about mixed doubles. Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.